All right, now we're going to start hitting proportions. Proportions work just like everything else with the standardized z-score. Okay, so proportion is, by definition, it's the stated population proportion. It's represented by a plane p. So p hat, or in the book that you're using, it's p with a bar over it. It's the number of successes in a sample over the total number of individuals in the sample. Okay, so let's work through this. Remember this formula, we're going to turn everything into a z-score and then look up the probability on a z-table, proportion table, frequency table. And what we have been doing is the mean from the sampling is the sample mean minus population mean divided by the standard deviation by the sample size. So the proportions work basically the same with a few minor exceptions. Here's the z-score formula for proportion. So p hat is the sample proportion minus p, that's the population proportion, and the standard deviation is the square root of the proportion times 1 minus the proportion divided by the square root of the sample size. I'm sorry, divided by the sample size. That whole thing is square rooted. But let's go ahead and plug it in. Again, p hat is the sample proportion, plain p is the population proportion, n is the sample size. So the first one, problem A, they want to know what the probability is that a sample proportion, I can't put a hat in there. Well, yes, I can. Hold on. Mo better. All right, so that's what we're testing, that a sample proportion will be less than 0.35. So we're just going to plug and chug the values from our z-score for proportions, right? So 0.35 is the proportion we're testing minus the population proportion of 0.3. And here's the bottom stuff, right? 0.3 is the population, 1 minus 0.3 divided by 100. Let's do some math on this. Top one was pretty easy, right? 0.05 is the difference on top. And 0.7 is 1 minus 0.3. So it comes out to 0.21 divided by 100 comes out to be that. We're going to take the square root of that. Bam. Important. This we can use this as a standard deviation when we switch over to Excel. I'll hit you up on this later here in a second or two. Okay, but we divide this by that, we get a z-score of 1.09. Let's look that up on a table. So 1.09 is all the way across. So it's 0.8621. Bam. And that is the less than or equal to, right? So less than and less than or equal to are the same thing in probabilities. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that should be the answer. But we're going to double check in Excel using the norm dist. That is your best friend. And this is what you're going to enter instead of the random variable x. You're going to use the proportion p hat, the sample proportion. Instead of the population mean, you're going to use the population proportion. The standard deviation is what we just went through there. Hold on. Had an extra parentheses. Didn't need that in there. But again, the standard deviation is what we're going to use from the one we just calculated. It's going to be 0.0458. Okay, so we're going to type that into our Excel. So let's switch over to Excel. So in Excel, a statistician's best friend. Population proportion is 0.3, sample size is 100, and the St. Dev that we calculated, right? This is the square root of p times 1 minus p divided by n. So that's how we got that. So these p's inside the parentheses should be p bar, p hat, but I can't put that in there. But here, let's just go ahead and pick a cell. We're going to go to the function bar. We want norms dist again, norm dist. Where are you, baby? There you are. And again, x is the p hat this time. So that our p hat, what we're testing is 0.35. So it's going to be your x, 0.35. Your mean is your population mean. In this case, it's population proportion. That's 0.3. Oops. Click it down the right one. 0.3. Sample size is don't need sample size. Interesting. So standard deviation we just calculated. It's 0.0458 And cumulative, we want true. And let's click OK, and it should give us the answer. Bam. 0.8625. Our, when we hand calculated, was a little bit different. Again, because we round quickly. We ran shorter than Excel. Okay, so let's repeat this. I'm going to simply right-click. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste the formula back into this. Just paste. And then I'm going to go to the formula bar and change the 0.35, what we're testing, to 0.40. And because it's a greater than, hello, I'm going to change it to 1 minus that. And I'm going to hit enter. There's the answer for that one. So let's jump down to the next one. The next one is a range. Again, I'm going to right click. I'm going to copy. Click the cell that I want it in. Right click, paste. I'm going to go to the function bar. I'm going to get rid of that 1 minus nonsense. I'm going to highlight the whole formula all the way up to the equal sign, not including. I'm going to hit a subtraction, and I'm going to paste it back in. Subtraction, not equals, subtraction. Paste it back in. And then I'm going to put the big value first, so 0.27. I'm going to make that the first norm disk. The second norm disk, I'm going to do 0.25. And there's a subtraction between them. This should give us the answer. Boom. So those are your answers, A, B, and C. MGZ, out of here.